This is Bad Movies We Love, part of the Shice Podcast Network.
If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Hello, bad movie lovers and good movie lovers. Welcome back to another episode of Bad Movies We Love. As always, I am your host, Nick Scheist.
The master of this stupid stuff!
I am very much looking forward to bringing you more stupid stuff to sink our teeth into together, but before we get to today's movie, I want to ask you for a favor. Now, this is the part of the show that I like the least, but in this online world we find ourselves in, it is a big part of growing the show. I know this is a good show, and if you're a repeat listener, then I would think you feel the same way too. So I would ask that you help support the show in one of the following ways. First, make sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. Second, please rate the show and leave a review if you can. It may seem unimportant, but reviews help the podcast distribution algorithms get the show to more great listeners like yourselves. Third, click the support the show link in the show notes to become a contributor. Sustaining members unlock all the exclusive sub-series, early access to the amazing Bi-Mon Sci-Fi-Con series. You'll also get an invite to the Discord server where you can chat with the other Resistance Frontlines members and myself about episodes and themes and what you want to see on the show. However, my favorite member perk is automatic entry into all giveaways. I do a lot of giveaways, from movies to stickers to mugs and other gift items, even a $100 Criterion gift card a couple Christmases ago. And I just made custom shirts for all of our sustaining members. So if any of that sounds appealing, I'd urge you to sign up. And if sustaining membership isn't your thing, you can also make one-time donations through the support link in the show notes, and all contributors get a thank you gift. All that for just $5 a month is a great bargain. And lastly, if you've been listening to the show for any period of time, I'd love for you to take the listener survey. It's completely anonymous, unless you want to disclose anything, but your answers really help me make a better show. The link for that is up in the show notes as well. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate any and all support you can give me. Moving on to this episode, I was joined once again by the great Scot Maupin from The Perfect Show and Solutions from the Multiverse, and he joined me to talk about one of the most famously troubled and panned movies that is now having its resurrection, its reappraisal. We are talking about the Wachowskis' Speed Racer from 2008. It feels a little bit like a cartoon, which is intentional.
You're just like surrounded by this movie.
Probably very off-putting to a huge percentage of the movie-going audience.
The theater experience levels it up in ways that it doesn't level up certain other movies.
Like, the movie still looks like it's from the future.
Like, it's people smashing Matchbox cars in like a real life or CGI life scenario, you know?
He's gonna do it.
I don't know why I'm doing it anymore.
You don't climb into a T-180 to be a driver. You do it because you're driven.
Racing has nothing to do with cars or drivers. You ready to put away your toys and grow up? Are you ready to become a real race car driver? Look at the split! He's shattering the lap record!
If you know so much, why don't you tell me why I should keep driving?
That's for you to figure out. I just hope when you do, that I'm there to see it.
Scott, long time no see. Long time since you've been on the pod, actually. It's been since like early season 2, so welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks. Good to be back.
It's good to have you. I mean, we're here for sort of like a very kind of special event. Do you want to introduce the movie we're talking about?
Well, I'm here to talk about the fantastic movie Speed Racer.
And I'm here to listen.
Yeah. But I want to hear your thoughts too. I'm very much, because this is a recent one for you. So I'm very excited to hear what you thought. But
yes, it was recent. I saw it when it had its re-release, and then I just bought the 4K special that came out like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure that I had it specifically to rewatch so that I could watch it at home for the purpose of this conversation. But yeah, tell me about the first time that you saw this.
Okay. Well, this movie came out in 2008. I saw it in the theaters in 2008, but I was living in Japan in 2008. So I saw this in a theater in Iwamizawa, Japan, in Hokkaido, Japan, with some friends. And it was it came out there like a few months later than it came out in the US. So I looked it up. It came out in the US in May, and it came out in Japan in July. So I had heard kind of word on the street, and people have been like, I don't know about this thing. So my expectations were sort of weird, but I went with a friend. We were like, this looks fun. Went with a group of friends and watched it. Let Speed Racer wash all over me, and then like came out sort of just silently with my friends. And one of our friends spoke up, and they were like, "So are we all on the same page?" And we were like, I think so. They were like, "That was bad, right?" And my friend and I were like, "What? No, that was fantastic. That ruled. That was amazing." So I initially responded very well to this movie and have watched it a number of times since, each time usually finding the stuff I love about it still there pretty strong.
Nice. I was curious as what the response would be from like the Japanese audience, because this is originally a Japanese property. So it's interesting that it was kind of mixed response there. It's mixed response here. I don't know. The movie grosses 50 million, internationally. 3.5 million or so of that is in Japan. So it's like not necessarily a failure, but definitely underperforms.
Yeah, it wasn't like ginormous. And my group was we're all non-Japanese. I was with a bunch of Westerners, and so we were giving the American perspective on it. But I remember it being just one of the movies that came out that summer, and it also probably didn't perform well because some of the competition was it was up against some juggernauts too. So that because Speed Racer opens on May 9, but like a week before that is Iron Man, and so everyone is. Like Iron Man is just a juggernaut that nobody was really expecting to be that big that year, and just kind of plowed through everything else, I think. So Speed Racer included.
Yeah, Iron Man at the time was, I think, a little bit of a surprise hit. So you can't really like plan for that. I know that the plan was for Speed Racer to obviously be more successful than it ended up being. But when you walk into sort of like a buzzsaw that, culturally sort of changes a lot of things as well. And you have The Dark Knight is this year as well. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's two giant superhero movies in the summer that like you really are going to get drowned out by. So, yeah, for me, I got to see this for the first time in its 4K restoration in theaters. That was, I don't know, a couple months ago at this point. And I actually I wasn't sure that I was going to go see it. I was kind of on the fence. And I think you mentioned that you had gone and seen it again. And I was like, all right, there's nothing that's really overwhelmingly sort of drawing me into the theater this week, and I have the option to do this. So I did it, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised because it was a movie that when it came out in 2008, like the word of mouth was generally so bad amongst critics that I wasn't a big enough fan of the cartoon to force me to go see it. I had seen the cartoon on here and there. I watched it, I enjoyed it, but I wasn't a hardcore fan. So I wasn't, like bloodbound to Speed Racer. And then just, time goes by. It ends up being almost 20 years later, and I had never really been sort of catalyzed to go see it. So I'm glad that I did, because in the theatrical experience, it's really amazing to see on the big screen. And
Yeah.
I mean, it still looked good on the 4K Blu-ray that I picked up. The color is amazing. Like the depth of field stuff that happens in the edit is really incredible. And yeah, just a really like super fun day at the movies that I was not expecting. And the movie has a lot more going for it than just the way it looks. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I want to just get into a couple of the details here. Speaking of details, the Film File is brought to you by our friends at Artist Bookkeeping, helping businesses balance their budgets and gain real, clear financial perspective. As a podcaster, I'm focused on the end product that makes it to your ears and getting the show out to more listeners. But behind the scenes, between hosting fees, equipment, studio rentals, website domains, security essentials, and probably a few other things I'm forgetting, there are a lot of details to keep track of. I got into podcasting because I love talking to people and building communities, not because I love finances. I've already got plenty of data to analyze when it comes to growth trends and forecasting. That's why I turned to Artist Bookkeeping for help. After a quick discovery call and a free assessment, plus a look at the results together, I walked away with a full picture of my business's financial situation, a clear, flat fee quote with no long-term contract, and a partner I could trust. So now I can focus on growing the show, knowing that I have someone in my corner to look at the numbers and give me fair, honest guidance. And I love that it's a conversation, not a report. So if you want clear numbers, predictable cash flow, and a partner you can trust, go to artistbookkeeping.com today to schedule your free consultation. That's ARTIS bookkeeping.com. Bookkeeping is an art, so choose Artist Bookkeeping. So this was obviously directed by the Wachowskis, and this is post-Matrix trilogy. So yes. Pendulum swinging hard back in the opposite direction, but a very intentional choice by them. It was co-written by them as well, based on the animated series by Tatsuo Yoshida, starring Emile Hirsh, Christina Ricci, Matthew Fox, but also featuring some heavy hitters like John Goodman, Susan Sarandon. You also get Scott Porter, Kit Gurry, was it Polly Litt, Hiroyuki Sanada, great actor in a very sort of small role, and Roger Allman, who's not even in the promotional materials, but is the primary villain in the movie. You get the score
Tim
by
Curry.
Michael Giacchino. Tim Curry is in it very briefly, yeah. You get a great score from Michael Giacchino, who includes some of the original music into the score here. You get kind of like a remake of the original song. Cinematography by David Tattersall. Editing by Roger Barton and Zach Steinberg. Production design by Owen Patterson. Incredible production design. Great sets as well by Peter Walpole. And some really great costumes as well by Kim Barrett. So I think on the surface level, like, we'll get into some speculation, but I feel like I understand why somebody wouldn't like this. I feel like it is a lot.
It's a lot.
It's kind of like the movie's waterboarding you a little bit. You kind of, like, if you don't enjoy what you're seeing, it's 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and so you don't really get a reprieve from the onslaught that the movie is. There are some like quieter moments, but it is very, I think, visually intense and feels a little bit like a cartoon, which is intentional, but also probably very off-putting to a huge percentage of the movie-going audience. But we're here talking about it nearly 20 years later, because I think it does have a lot going for it. And so I think, like, in a nutshell, what do you think is like the redeeming quality of Speed Racer now that has led to the re-release of the film and has, sort of championed the push for this 4K release and sort of like the reappraisal that we've entered?
I mean, I think now when I went and saw it in the theater again, and I agree, it levels up. It's one of these movies where it's not a perfect movie, but the theater experience levels it up in ways that it doesn't level up certain other movies. You're just like surrounded by this movie. And so I think now when I went and saw it again, what I'm seeing there is the color and the vibrance and the saturation and just the amount of production value that's going on and the thought that's going into everything how it doesn't feel as generic. It doesn't feel like anything else. And that's what I think is missing. Because now where movies feel a lot of movies kind of feel like the same movie. This feels like no other thing that's out there that I can really, for better or worse. There's nothing like it, you know?
Is this the movie that ruined color for an entire generation of filmmakers to follow? They were like, this movie, the color's amazing. We can't do this. Nobody liked this. Nobody wants color. Everything must be gray.
Maybe it used up all the color. It depleted all the color resources for cinema for the next 20 years. And they're like, guys, we would like to have a more saturated film, but just Speed Racer has left us in a ditch.
Well, you know, when I had talked about Battlefield Earth on the show as well, you know, we talked about the influences of The Matrix and sort of the costuming of that movie. And we talked about, Seth and I from Movie Friends, talked about the Wachowskis using up all the leather for The Matrix. So they used up all the leather, they used up all the color, and, you know, cinema is now devoid of both the shiny leather and color. So I am curious, though, generally speaking, if the way that this movie looks factored into it being as off-putting as it was, because, like, is it sort of like the stylistic choices? Is it the vibrancy? Is it the pace of the film? Because, you know, like all the sets and stuff are also very colorful. A lot of it's like, it's all shot on green screen. It's all HD. It's all digital for the most part. So you can really get into some like color ranges that otherwise wouldn't happen. But I was listening to an interesting interview, a very rare interview with the two of them about their choices. And even at the time of making the movie, saying like, yeah, a lot of movies just kind of look the same. And so wanting to really like make an intentional choice to do that. And then to now be 18 years down the line and seeing that, I think the love for the movie has held really strong and the dislike of it has not held up as strong. Yeah. And to see the sort of daily complaints about color grading in films and how everything looks gray and, you know, lighting is poor. And so to sort of see all of those complaints happening in a contemporary or through a contemporary lens, and then being able to go and watch this. And in one of the interviews that Emile Hirsh did, he was saying like the movie still looks like it's from the future, which is kind of crazy given that it's as old as it is now. I mean, it's approaching 20 years old and it looks more modern than a lot of movies right now. And I think that's a cool kind of like stamp that this movie is going to have for a long time, because I don't know when the next filmmaker is going to come along that is going to push the visual envelope past where we've seen it with this. I don't know that like we will get to a point where you can sort of surpass this.
Yeah, I mean, they were maxing out. I feel like very intentionally maxing out everything they could. And with that comes there's just like there's no way to go past it in future things. I also think the reaction is softer now because we've seen more of the Wachowskis' work and their sensibilities. And at the beginning, like when The Matrix comes out and it explodes and everyone's like, yay, do more of this. And then they do Matrix 2 and we're like, not like that. They do Matrix 3 and we're like, not like that either. Do Matrix 1 again. And then I think the Wachowskis were very consciously like, no, we want to do different things. And it was so not Matrix 1 that people were like, are you even listening to us tell you what to do with your careers? Like, what do you got? What's going on here? Yeah. And so, I think now you've got people less attached to why aren't you making The Matrix over and over again, and more appreciative of like, oh, this is a thing on its own. This is its own, like it's people smashing Matchbox cars in like a real life or CGI life scenario, you know?
Yeah, it is sort of like what would happen if like two kids had the ability to make the movie they wanted when they were kids. It would have been Speed Racer. And so it is like this family friendly movie that I feel like is still very palatable for adults, because I still really enjoyed it. And I mean, speaking of, you know, revisiting The Matrix over and over, it's like, come back, do it again. And still like, nope. Okay, we're tired of this now. No more Matrix. And it's like, yeah, you could have left it alone when you could have left it alone, but instead, like, we're mining this IP to death. And I mean, that happens a lot, unfortunately. So it is nice to see that this kind of like stands alone, just like on this hill for them. I think even in comparison to a lot of their other work, it's by far the most colorful. I think it's the most energetic as well. And there's a behind the scenes featurette that I'll link to in the show notes as well that talks specifically about sort of doing the kind of things that they would have wanted to do as children. But I want to take a look quickly at the tail of the tape, because we're talking about this movie for a reason. Despite the upswell and the sort of reappraisal territory that we've entered, this movie is still on the wrong side of the meter, but it means that we get to talk about it. So it has an IMDb of 6.1, which is healthy, I think. Metascore, though, of 37. Rotten Tomatoes critic score 42%. Audience score of 60%. Letterboxd of 3.2. No Google user rating on this one. So it gives us a Bad Movies We Love total of 54.4 out of 100. So still in what would I think like widely be considered the sort of, I don't know. I think like the 5 range is not necessarily like letter grade equivalent where this is like, oh, this is a F level film. It's sort of more like a middling level film that it has its detractors, but I think the people that love it much more than the people who dislike it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I buy that.
Yeah, because I love it. I mean, I saw it for the first time. You know, I got into costume. I bought a 4K Blu-ray brand new for this. So I feel like I want to be one of the people that, you know, champions for this movie at this point. Yeah. Granted, you know, we're past the re-release and the 4K, but I mean, it's still for sale. And I mean, good luck finding that steelbook. I tried, but like it immediately sold for $30 and then was on eBay for like 65 within a day. So I think the speed heads out there have definitely stepped it up. They did, you know. There's some steelbook collectors out there. They did. I will say though that at least the regular 4K disc, I mean, it's like $25, and it's a slipcover, so like it's not just plastic. It's nice enough for the price point that you're getting it at. So like you don't have to beat yourself up about the steelbook, but the steelbook is nice. I'll say that. I looked for it. Let me set the table for the audience. This movie has quite a bit of production notes. It was a long project. It spends over a decade in development hell after Warner Brothers originally acquires the rights in 1992. And then through the 90s and early 2000s, the project cycles through multiple directors, writers, cast attachments, but never moves into actual production. It wasn't until 2006 the Wachowskis came on to write and direct, and they wanted to reimagine this property as like this highly stylized, family-friendly, but experimental blockbuster. And I think all of those things are accurate in describing it. But so rather than a traditional adaptation, they leaned into this like avant-garde influence, this pop art, these anime aesthetics, working again with John Gaida to design a film that would feel like a live-action cartoon, which I think it does. So Warner Brothers ends up greenlighting it, producing it, setting it up for a May 2008 release. Production begins in 2007 at Babelsberg Studios in Germany, and the film is shot almost entirely on green screen in high def. It's the first time the Wachowskis filmed completely in HD, but what that does is it allows them to use this heavy layering and VFX to create the hyper-stylized look. So the racing environments, the cars, the action sequences were built almost entirely in post-production. And those
weren't practical setting? Those weren't practical sets?
No, that racetrack was not real.
I thought that was a real racetrack. I was
Yeah. Almost. You know, I don't know what city that was, but it looked very futuristic. I thought it was on location. But yes, they shop it out to a lot of effects houses, including Digital Domain, Sony Pictures Imageworks, and Industrial Light and Magic. So this movie also gets a very healthy marketing campaign that costs about $80 million with promotions, tie-ins, thousands of licensed products, Lego sets, toys, video games, fast food stuff. Because Warner Brothers looked at this like, it's the Wachowskis, we just had The Matrix, we're going to build a brand new franchise here, and this is going to be the start of it. Womp womp. So Speed Racer premieres in 2008. In April of 2008, opens in May, makes $18 million in its opening weekend, which isn't bad, but like we talked about earlier, runs into a couple of incredible buzzsaws in The Dark Knight and Iron Man, just at the wrong time. But grosses still about $94 million worldwide against its reported budget of $120. So it ends up being a box office disappointment despite those merchandising expectations. Sadly, it's not a critical success either, as I mentioned, with many critics praising the visual ambition while criticizing the story and density. However, CinemaScore audiences, the people who are graded or who grade the movie right after walking out of the theater, they gave it an A-. So audiences, the right audiences that went to see it like on opening weekend liked it. So granted, you know, that's neither here nor there now, but over time, the film has been reassessed much more positively by critics and filmmakers now, often cited as an ahead of its time cult favorite for its bold experimental visual style. However, it still remains divisive, seen either as an over-stylized misfire or a genuinely ambitious attempt to reinvent what a studio blockbuster could look like. And we haven't gotten anything like this since, really. So I think there is some truth to the sort of like misfire element, but I mean, following this, they do Cloud Atlas, which at the time was also kind of hated. It was like very ambitious, very weird, very dense as well, but I think emotionally still very sort of dialed in to what they wanted. And then that gets followed by Jupiter Ascending, which is sort of like back in the Speed Racer trash box. So like there's this kind of up and down with reception to their work, even though I feel like as filmmakers they've been fairly consistent. And when the latest Matrix came out in 2021, I'm like, they're making the movie begrudgingly, and I can feel that in the filmmaking. But all that said, like, I didn't hate it. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of things I liked about that movie. I understand why people didn't like it, because the depreciating returns on the Matrix franchise like have continued to go down since the first one, like you said. Right. So of course, like there's never going to be the same level of love. But I remember being chastised for like liking that movie. Like, you're not allowed to like that. That movie sucks. I'm like, oh, too bad. Kiss my ass. I liked it.
The secret is that each Matrix movie is about like a different thing, and then you just have to get with whatever that Matrix movie is about. Like, the new one's about different stuff.
Yeah, so like the legacy of this movie is interesting, because we exist in a weird time now where it's like I feel like there's a lot of playing it safe, even from like the directors who would wield the kind of power that the Wachowskis had at the time, you know? So I don't know. Do you feel like in terms of the legacy of their careers, granted, like it's not ultimately that many films, but in terms of like a sort of weighted average for their movies, like does this end up being sort of like the movie? Because I mean, like the Matrix visually like reinvents action films. Like there's a whole slew of copycat movies coming out of the Matrix after 1999. We see the bullet time, we see the slow-mo, we see the leather. There's a bunch of other movies at that time that are about like other realities, digital realities, artificial intelligence, a lot of that. And the same is not true of Speed Racer. It's not like Speed Racer like set this incredible precedent and people wanted to like copy that. But I think like the core of what Speed Racer is and what the movie is actually talking about, strip away all the color, all the bells and whistles, like all that. Like it's a anti-capitalist movie by two people who created this like huge capitalist juggernaut franchise in The Matrix. And so I feel like it's a hugely important piece of their filmography.
Yeah, and I think like like the new Matrix is probably about movie making. It's just in a different format. I think this is about movie making, but in a different format, because they're like, hey, we just went through this churning thing and we had our own rich person giving us suits, trying to get us into their, getting into their machine and just do it and sell your soul. And, like this is a movie about that too. We are all Speed Racer trying to fight against corruption by outside forces, so I think in that way it's their movie. This is probably my favorite. This is my favorite Wachowskis movie, and so I always think of them as having more movies and a larger filmography. But yeah, I mean, The Matrix is great, but just this hits me in more just like visceral ways where I have feelings, and like even when I'm watching this and trying to take notes for a podcast or watching it and I'm like, oh, I'm not really in, or I'm mostly detached because I'm thinking about what is different in this movie now, what's the production about it. It still locks me in. It still gets me and locks me in. By the end, I'm just like, nope, putting my pencil down. I am just going to watch this race and experience what they've created in color and shape and just like let it wash over me. I don't know. It still works.
Yeah, I didn't really take notes for this the second time. I was like, I've seen it recently enough where I don't feel that I really need to. Like, I jotted some stuff down, but
yeah,
I
there's
feel like
not
it's
a lot
all still
to.
pretty fresh. But like you have this character in Speed who I think maybe by today's standards, right? Like we saw in the reaction to Project Hail Mary, I think some of the detractors were like, "Oh, it's cringe. Like he's too like sensible and like normal and too earnest." Yeah, people don't really respond to that in the right way like you would expect sometimes. And I think, because we brought up Marvel movies, I think we saw that same curve happen in Marvel where, Iron Man was the friendly tech bro that everybody liked when that was cool at the time. And then as the taste for that personality type sort of like waned, Captain America sort of being this like steadfast character sort of gained in popularity over time. And so it's like by the time that we end up in like the sort of like the final conflict moments, it's like we get this nice resolution arc between them. And so I think with Speed, you get this guy who I think people would say is maybe like naive. I think that's what the villain wants him to believe. And it's not just an avatar for the Wachowskis, but I think it's an avatar for all of us as well, is that like in the face of not just adversity, but in the face of sort of like proof that all of the things that you loved were fixed, were faked, were manipulated. Do you at that point just say, oh, well, like, I guess I have to get with the times because this is the way things are? Or do you stand up and continue to like fight for the things that you actually believe in? And I think that like that sort of true core, the heart of the movie really is kind of like what makes the movie work for me. Because if Speed isn't that guy, then like I there's no room for him to be a complex hero here, right? He's sort of like, he's got one note, but that one note is very earnest and it's very true. He just loves his family. He loves his girlfriend. He loves racing, and he wants to do the right thing. And I think that might have come at a time when there was just a little bit like too much cynicism in the market, because like even with Neo, we get a guy who's like a sort of unwilling messiah, right? Like he doesn't really believe in himself as the messiah. He doesn't really necessarily even believe in the full truth of the Matrix, and he's constantly sort of plagued by like I'm not the fulfiller of the prophecy. So like there is like some complexity with him that isn't there with Speed, but he's surrounded by a lot of people that have a lot of those emotions going on. So I like that it kind of just lets him be him.
Yeah. I mean, he is a cartoon character in every sense of the word, including kind of just the one-dimensional focus on I am, they show you from him as a kid. They're like, this kid has one thing on his mind and only one. This is the character. He is a racing guy. and you let everyone else sort of pepper in the different aspects, in the movie. You get that's why you have John Goodman there, because he can just deliver a line with amazing complexity and nuance, and you're just like, oh, yep, you did it, John. That's great. That's exactly what we needed. But
yeah, I think like if you strip away the speed racer element, like the fact that it's a brand and like the movie's exactly the same, you would probably think the main character is going to be Rex, because he's the one who's dealing with a lot of the complex emotional weight of like his decision to do the things that he's done. He's also seen behind the curtain, but he needs to separate from the family to protect them. Like you would think that Racer X maybe becomes the main
more
character.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, he might be sort of more interesting like when you step back far enough, but I think in the context of this movie, I'm not really looking for the character to be super interesting. I mean, there's a guy whose name is like Snake Oiler, right? And he's just like snake themed. It's great. That's what I want from this movie is guys that like
guys driving Viking cars that are Viking.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's like pro wrestling from the 80s, right? Like there's very, very clearly defined elements about who these characters are, and they play those notes, and they play the audience up to those notes as well. But because we talked about sort of watching this again, I want to talk about your experience watching this, because you did a very sort of like specific avant-garde project in order to watch this.
Well, because I had already seen it in the theater and I've seen it at home before, so I'm like, I don't know what, I'll figure out a new way to watch it. So I during COVID I couldn't go to the theater, and so I got myself a VR goggles thing to watch movies on, like you're in a theater or whatever, which is okay. Going to a theater is better, but so I put it on VR goggles and watched it that way. So I mean, I could show you. I took pictures of myself watching this on my VR. I can show you. Let me see.
Yeah, let's see that.
But it was a bit of a process. I realized, because I was taking notes, that once I had these on, I am not able to see. So my notes were like Dr. Scratch, just kind of like trying to write without being able to see, and then trying to decipher it later was pretty funny. But yeah, here I am wearing the VR goggles and watching. I think I took a little thing here where, I don't know if you can hear that.
And is it like VR to the point where like when you look around, you sort of like are in a fixed position, and so it feels like sort of a theater?
Yes, this is for this version. Yeah, it looks like I'm staring at a ginormous screen, and when I turn left or right, I can look at the edges of the screen. It doesn't track with me. So
is this the Apple headset?
This is the Meta Quest one.
Okay, yeah. I did
but
the demo for that in the Apple Store. It was pretty cool.
It's okay. It was a new way to watch it, and I got to like zoom in and out and be like, oh, I'll be on like the front row or type thing, and just be way too close or way too far back. It was actually, the resolution was better than when I went and saw the 4K. For me, I saw fewer pixels on this, so I think it may have been
interesting.
A higher res thing, or at least maybe my eyes were better with it. But yeah, there was a new way to see it, and it was still enjoyable, and it gets me to the point where I cry in this movie. Like at the end, I'm just weeping at like, oh my gosh, everything that's happening. It overloads all my senses, and it works again. So I know if I roll tears, then it's a working viewing for me, and it worked this time too.
Yeah, I was surprisingly emotional when I watched it. It caught me way off guard when I saw it in theaters, and I was like, wow, I did not expect to have like this kind of experience with Speed Racer, which, people have been telling me is trash for almost 2 decades. So it was a very, very pleasant surprise. I'm glad that the headset was a okay way to go. I mean, as a glasses wearer, I am always like, I don't know, like 3D glasses are kind of always a pain. Putting something over my glasses is kind of always a pain. So it's like when I go to see movies that I know I have to wear 3D glasses, I'm like, all right, let me put my contacts in and hope that the contact like lands in the place that it's supposed to by the time I'm going to the theater. So I'm not dealing with that blurred vision as well.
Well, no, it was annoying. Don't get me wrong. I don't recommend it. I did it for the bit. I think it's not the ideal version. It was annoying, but you know, it's got to do something for your show. Do something special for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And speaking of doing special things, I want to do the synopsis haiku. I don't know if we were even doing this the last time that you were on the show.
I don't think we were.
Or if it was like in development. It's been a while, right? You know, that was like early season 2 stuff. It maybe happened season 3. Beats me. I haven't listened back to a lot of those early episodes in quite some time, but I'll go first. That way, you know, next time you can go first. Okay, so fight capitalism, family, honor, legacy, go Speed Racer, go. Very simple. It's not much of a synopsis, but it's the fighting capitalism that I think is the core tenet of the film.
Okay. Mine, I wrote, the demon on wheels, becoming one with the car, go Speed Racer, go.
See? I mean, it's right there. Low-hanging fruit.
It's the final, you have to.
You have to. It was a movie where like even the closing credits are fun, which I think was a nice little added bit because those stylized credits have kind of gone away as well. It's not really a thing that we see. We get the dark credits roll. We kind of sit around waiting to see if a movie has a post-credit scene, but to sort of make the credits their own experience is something maybe a little bit of a lost art form. And before we get to the trailer, this is where we're going to speculate, or at least I'll ask you. What do you think is the key thing that has stuck in the craw of the people who think this is a bad movie?
I think they're mad that it's not serious enough. You know what I mean? I think they want something more grounded and gritty. I think that's the detractors. That's what I can imagine. I mean,
I don't know. I don't know how you would do that with Speed Racer. Like you just end up at like Death Race with Jason Statham, which I mean that's also considered a bad movie. So you can't go too far in the other direction where it's like, all right, they're in a prison and everything's gray and like it looks like Twisted Metal out here.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, I think people were mad. I think there's still people that are mad that it's not The Matrix. And any movie that the Wachowskis make that is not The Matrix, they're going to be like mad. So,
yeah, I will say I am super curious to watch Jupiter Ascending now because that was the other one that was like, this movie is trash. And I've seen moments of it on cable a couple times. And I was like, this is like, I don't know. It's not really Uncanny Valley, but like something was happening where I'm like, I cannot accept what I'm seeing. I need to step away from this. I was like, I've been curious to go back to it. I just haven't done it. And now I'm maybe more confident that maybe that movie's really a good movie, masquerading around as a piece of crap.
I am not co-signing that one because I don't remember. I don't remember responding the same way to it, even though I do enjoy myself some Channing Tatum. But yeah, maybe I should revisit it too. It's been a while. I haven't seen that one probably since it came out.
Yeah. Somebody somewhere in my comments section or direct messages mentioned Jupiter Ascending to me, and I just was like, okay, I'll pin that, and then never got back to it. So if you are that person and you remember loving Jupiter Ascending, you want to talk to me about it, please email me at badmovieswelove@theshice.com and we'll chat. All right, let's take a look at that trailer if I know how to do this. But first, a quick word from our friends around the network.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us. I am Nick Scheist, and you may remember me from the Scheist Podcast and Bad Movies We Love.
And I'm Seth Vargas of the Movie Friends Podcast.
And we decided to join forces, a team-up, if you will, because X-Men 97 was so good, we just couldn't help ourselves.
That's right. So join us as we discuss our personal history with the comics, the films, and the collectible trading cards of the X-Men universe.
And, of course, the catalyst for it all, X-Men 97. To me, my ex-friends.
Oh, I have no.
Can you hear that?
No audio. No audio.
No? All right. That's a bummer.
But I think if you share the screen and then there's a little tab at the bottom for it.
It used to do that on Zoom, but
All he talks about,
Do I need to be quiet while this is happening?
all
Nah,
he
it's
seems
fine.
capable of thinking about, is automobile racing.
it's got a little like voiceover to it. It's mostly just images, though.
Racing's everything. For my family, it isn't just a sport. It's way more important than that. It's
Cars.
like
I mean,
a
what else do we
religion.
want?
Are you ready to become a
It's
real
all
race
production
car
value on this
driver?
thing.
Then sign that contract.
He's just trying to scare you, son.
What you do behind the wheel of a race car has nothing to do
Car's
with
got those
business.
little feet,
You walk away from me. You walk away from this
which
deal.
seems a little
No
bit
matter
like
what you
cheating,
drive,
even
you
in the
won't
world
win.
that
You
they
won't
exist
face.
in.
I guarantee you.
I know they were
right
very
now,
mad
you
about
won't
the
even
other guy
finish the
cheating at the
race.
end, but
Well, but his gimmicks are more like defensive gimmicks. They're
But it's the only thing I know.
I think
how to do when I
they're
gotta
more
do
acceptable. He's just bouncing his car. He's not like taking a hammer and trying to hit someone else's car.
that's true. But he does use them in that final race where he like kicks another car into the other car. He makes two
Sure.
cars explode.
Well, that's Rubbin. Rubbin's racing.
I know when the ninja shows up in this movie, I'm like, we got ninjas too. We got ninjas and chimpanzees in a movie about race cars.
And
This
gangsters
is-
and
yeah, we got the
piranhas.
mob. Yeah, piranhas eating dudes' fingers off.
That's a crazy scene.
No, he's going to be
It's like plug the
best
hole.
if they don't destroy him first.
Well, we did go. Oddly enough, that was not the original trailer that I had pulled, but that's fine.
That's a good one still.
Yeah, it was fun. So, I'm going to leave it open for just like general discussion for a little bit before we go to the trivia. And one of those things that I noticed for this, like this is a movie that's set way in the future, or at least the world is futuristic. I mean, it's sort of, it's got like a little bit of maybe like a 50s, 60s era look to kind of what a concept futuristic car would look like from that era.
Yeah.
And some of the houses and stuff and the color from that era. But also, you know, he drives stick, which I'm like, you know, if this is in the future, we've already at this point kind of advanced past manual. Like the fact that I drive a stick shift is weird in 2026, but it's a nice touch for a guy who's a race car driver to still be driving stick rather than the paddle shifters. But
Right.
I feel
Well,
like,
and I think they're trying to achieve the look of what, because Speed Racer is made in the 60s. They're like, this is what someone in the 60s thinks of as the future, even though we're translating that and seeing if we can communicate both those things at this simultaneously somehow.
I like that though. I mean, it's one of my favorite thing actually about movies is looking at older films and how they sort of predict the visual aesthetic of the future. It's one of my favorite things about Cronenberg, and like his vision of the future is very sort of muted and beige and gray, and it's like I'm sure a lot of that just had to do with the filming locations that were available, but to stylistically rely on a lot of those decisions. I love like the 80s vision of what the future is going to look like, and when you're at Disneyland and you're like the Space Mountain sort of like corridor is designed like that, and I'm like, it's a very like interesting aesthetic, but I do appreciate it a lot because I'm like, oh, you thought this is what the future was going to look like, but like realistically now it just looks like the 80s.
Yes. Now it looks like that specific locked in future prediction. Whereas I'm sure we'll have the same thing when we, 40 years from now.
I hope so. I hope we look back and we're like, yep, that was the 2020s. All right. We know exactly what it looked like. So I want to talk a little bit about sort of the anti-capitalist core of this film, because on the one hand, it costs $120 million. It has a marketing budget of $80 million. It had a toy line, a Lego line, lunchboxes. Like it was heavily geared towards being like a capitalistic monster. Like if the movie was a success,
right,
and it did launch the trilogy or the franchise that they wanted, then in a weird way, it is kind of like this self-fulfilling prophecy. So the fact that it stands as like a one-off is also interesting because the character sort of at the center of the film is sort of fighting against going with the grain and just becoming part of the capitalist machine, being like the figurehead of the capitalist machine. So I'm curious, like if the movie's exactly the same, but is successful in launching the franchise and financially successful, are we talking about it 18 years later as this sort of like pinnacle of visual excess in filmmaking?
So you're saying if this becomes so popular that like it's seen as a success, same movie, are we celebrating it differently? I think,
yeah,
I mean,
if this wasn't just like a cult classic that people like really loved and went to bat for and made essays about it being incredible and important, and like it just became sort of part of the machine of big movies and was successful and was a summer staple, and maybe the Wachowskis pass it off to another director for the second one kind of thing,
sequels,
and it just becomes that. Yeah. Does it have the kind of staying power that brings us back to it at this point?
I think it would dilute it some. I think, and also the fact that it didn't work and it was kind of a thumb in the nose to the movies studios. It kind of puts us on the side of Speed Racer and not on the side of like, oh, we're just in the gears of corporate MCU IP, project number 23 or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it at the beginning, it holds more power, and by itself it holds more power, even though I'm sure they would have liked. I read that they were ready to do a sequel, and I think the ending of the movie is very much going like, hey, there's obviously sequel things happening here. I'm like, the ending is an abrupt right turn, and they're like, oh, by the way, we'll tack this on, which is silly and cartoonish, but also I think they were like, yeah, we're the Wachowskis, we get sequels if we want them, so we can have it if we want it, but not so much.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a sequel that is not part of an existing franchise plan kind of makes it worthwhile at this point, and knowing that the Wachowskis would do it for the right reasons rather than for the cash grab opportunity, which I don't even know if there is. The first movie wasn't successful. Like, so I don't know if like it has cash grab potential even. I think there's maybe like more of an audience now for it. But I know that Christina Ricci said that like when they were done filming, they had so much fun that they told the Wachowskis like, write the sequel because we want to do this again.
Yeah.
And it is my understanding, at least from what I have seen commented on, that the script is done for the sequel. And this Emile Hirsh said this in 2018. Joel Silver said that the story was great, and it's a great idea if it makes sense to make it. And so to me, that becomes like, can you make this movie at a price point that doesn't cost the studio its ass again? And so it's like it's a cost equation, which is sad because you have these filmmakers that have, I think, the kind of power and good faith from their audience to go and support something like this, but I don't know that it could be the like breakout kind of hit that it needs to be given the margins that it needs to make for a studio to make it successful. Like we probably would get the gritty, realistic version because you can't do all the other stuff if you don't have the budget.
Well, and the time window is now. I mean, you need to explain why now. I mean, the everybody will be in a different age group, and we'll have to do all that exposition. The one thing this movie does, I think, well, is it threads its exposition in interesting ways where I don't even mind it so much. And there is a ton of exposition that they have to get through to explain all the different rules of the world, all the different rules of the racing, all the different, like they have to set the table over and over again. And I kind of don't mind it every time they make it interesting.
There's also like completely pointless exposition too about like the intricacies of how the engine works. It's like, that doesn't matter. It's not a real engine. We don't need the science behind it. So I like that, like, they didn't slow down when it came to that. It's like, no, in this world, these are how these things are explained. And I mean, like, yes, this is it's a kids movie to some degree. Kids are not going to necessarily like understand the underlying mechanics of the capitalist criticism, but I think they're going to understand that like speed is fighting against the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
So I would be interested to see a sequel that is maybe lacking all of the color and stuff and style, and it's more of an examination of like how those things have been lost in the course of the last 20 years. Like, I don't want to like, you know, predict too much like what a sequel could do, but that would be an interesting commentary, is like, because they're making films sort of about filmmaking and about the business. That would be an interesting look at it, especially coming off the heels of The Matrix, whatever the fourth one was, that was sort of very introspective about being forced to make another Matrix movie kind of against their will so that the IP didn't get given to somebody else. And watching this thing that you created slowly sort of like not be your thing anymore, and not even having like the same relationship to creating it in the first place. I think that's like an interesting artistic territory to examine. Not that that would be the story, but who knows? I'm always down for Emile Hirsh. I think he's a good actor.
I think he's fun. Yeah. But I would almost want to, like, I would go the other way in my genie wish for a sequel. Is like, I want more of the colorful racing. I could do without some of the plot stuff. I'm just like, if you had 100 versions of that middle race where we have the scene where they're like, here's the car, here's the buttons, here's what each button is going to do. And I'm like, And then we see the race where he hits the buttons and the buttons do the thing. I'm like, yep. And I'm like, do that 100 times. Now the next race is in a jungle. Here, show me the jungle things and show me those buttons. And then I could be thoroughly entertained by that completely without that. I'm just like, yeah, but I also can turn my brain off and enjoy quite a few Fast and Furious movies as well. So it's something about car racing movies. I don't like watching actual car racing. I'm not a fan of any car racing sports, but car racing movies almost always work for me for some reason. They almost always work for me. I don't know.
Well, with most car races, it's like, there's 500 laps. I don't want to watch 500 of those unless you're like a big fan. So like, just give me the Cliff Notes version. Show me the final lap where the drama ensues, or the crash, or the tire blowout that needs to get fixed. Show me the drama, and we'll be good. But more environments, more crazy tracks. Maybe there's like an outer space race or something. Who knows? He could race an airplane.
At some point, you're watching a high budget version of Mario Kart. You're watching the Rainbow Road and like it's a giant Mario Kart race that you're watching. And you're just like, okay, let's see what you got. Let's direct this and have go. And they're that. What I also think is impressive is during these races, they're explaining the rules of the race while it's moving at speed, and you just see things that they can't explain. You just see cars crash into each other, bubbles take over the cockpit, the thing ejects out and bounces around, and you're like, okay, that's how drivers are safe. We don't ever really address it or talk about it. That's just understood now. And you're like, great, I love this. I love this cinematic language that's showing me all these things and how the world works.
Well, I think what's also like funny about that, if you don't pull at that thread too much, because it's like, wait a second, if their car crashes, there's like a protective ejector. So how did Rex actually die then? If it was a racing accident, but okay, don't ask too many questions.
Actually, he didn't die. It was he's Racer X. It's really hard to tell that Racer X is Rex, because if you say Racer X fast enough, you say Racer Rex. You have to stop yourself from saying Rex every time you say Racer X. So to not connect those dots is very comical indeed.
Yeah, I was like, he relied on the plastic surgery to take care of a lot of that. But I was thinking that in their little like showdown scene where he unmasks, and I was like, your name is still basically Rex. So he's still like, whatever. I lied to you, and you can't tell. So too bad.
They're like, you're my brother. He's like, no, I'm not. I am Matthew Fox from Lost. How about that? Matthew Fox,
really
who I think
to Lost, that would be something.
Does well in a lot of things, but the fight scenes were. I don't know if fight scenes are Matthew Fox's strong point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if fight scenes were this movie's strong point, but I do like that. Surprisingly, it's like, Big Daddy Racer also. Before he's building cars, he was into Greco-Roman wrestling.
When they zoom in on that ring and it says Greco-Roman, and then he like does the pizza spin on the, it's excellent. It's really excellent. Now, I love a lot of things about this movie I could do without Spritle and Chim Chim nearly as much.
They are a large
that's the part that doesn't work.
Part of the movie. I mean,
yes.
Again, it is for kids. And it is like, it's constantly going back and forth between like, here's a very sort of adult concept and some serious stuff. And then like, even in that scene where Royalton is explaining like everything that you've ever loved, all the races have been fixed, capitalism drives the stock market, they immediately cut to Spritle and Chim Chim driving down the hallway, like coked out on sugar, and like sort of juxtaposing these two things against each other, I think is very interesting because it doesn't really let you sit in sort of the darkest themes of the movie too much, and like pivots back to being like, yeah, at the end of the day, this is still sort of like an enjoyable, colorful kids movie, and we want the experience to still be there. But yeah, maybe a little bit too much monkey time on screen. But let's do some trivia.
Time for trivia.
Okay, so question number 1: which two actors were offered the role of Racer X but turned it down?
2008. Oh boy, Sean William Scott, maybe.
Ooh, that would have been funny, but no.
Who else would I put? I don't know. Who's a hot actor in 2008? This is
think about who the Wachowskis have worked with before.
So Keanu would be, of course.
Yeah.
Whoa, I'm Racer X. That would be good.
Yeah, I think that would have been good. Like he unmasks and it's Keanu Reeves. That would have been a nice little Easter egg for fans.
Or would that just world break the whole thing? Like,
right? No, I don't know. In this movie, I couldn't tell you.
No, it would be good.
The other one was Henry Rollins.
Henry Rollins?
Yeah.
Interesting.
A little too intense, maybe, for the tone of this movie. And then beyond the two of them, so
I mean, he's right in the zone for the anti-capitalism part of it, but
yes, he is. I think he gets like some of it right, but I think he is very intense for the rest of the film. Vince Vaughn was attached at one point to play the role and was also producing on the film
of Speed Racer
version of the movie,
or Racer X.
Oh no, he was going to be Racer X.
Okay.
So he was going to be Racer X, and he was signed on to produce, and then that version of the film never actually happened. But you still snagged a point from Keanu. So we'll go on to question number 2.
A very heavily assisted point.
Take them while you can get them. So
Joey Pantolano, was it Joey Pants?
Joey Pants.
I'm Racer X, everybody.
Be like, I recognize that goatee, Joey Pants. So when Royalton is showing Speed the footage in the office of what he's saying is like the fixed race. This is footage from a real life race. What race is it?
They were in old-timey cars, so
they were in old-timey cars.
Is this one of those, like, I mean, they were in cars that go awooga awooga when you hit the horn.
You gotta crank them up, yeah.
So is that even in like an Indianapolis 500, a Daytona 500? Is that a Grand Prix?
I'll give you the point for the Indy 500. It was the 1949 Indianapolis 500.
Oh, I would have never guessed, but
yes, this is like this is maybe like less than a decade removed from the hand crank version of cars, man.
Oh my goodness.
This is, like you said, very old timey. But yeah, real life. And it was a crash, and it was Duke Nayland who crashes and survives that crash as well. Okay. So hey, you got some. So
it wasn't Shaft. It wasn't Richard Roundtree who was.
It was not
driving in that one.
Oh,
okay.
Not on that one, unfortunately. So question number 3. in 1997 and 2000, respectively, there were two directors that were briefly hired and attached to the project. Who were those two directors?
97 and 2003. Well, 97, it's got to be Kevin Smith, right? They're like trying to get him away from Dogma. They're like, "Come."
It is not Kevin.
No,
no.
They were like, "We have a movie about motion."
He could have done it though.
He's like, "I refuse to move my camera. That's not going to happen." Oh man, Soderbergh, baby. I'm trying to think of who would make experimental weird movie. A Spike Jonze movie would be really stylized at this point, at like a post being John Malkovich. You're like, I'm thinking directors who make weird stylized stuff, because you're gonna make a weird stylized world.
Yeah, I would have never guessed these two directors, but it is Alfonso Cuarón and Hype Williams. So,
that's fun.
Yeah, I think
Alfonso Cuarón would have had a much darker.
Yeah,
the gritty.
Children of Men with race cars. Get that gritty realism that everybody was asking for. And yeah, Hype Williams, I think, with the music video background, would have been interesting take on it. But you got a healthy 2 points off of it. So we'll head over to the bonus wheel. Actually, I want to talk about some bonus trivia before we go to the bonus wheel. So, this was the first time the Wachowskis shot on HD digital, but also it was the first film to employ the Sony F23 digital camera, and to also record in parallel to Sony HD Cam for archive masters. It was also the first to employ codex digital data recorders for the on-set uncompressed HD playback. I am not a camera guy, so none of this stuff really even sounds like English to me, but it was more than just a revolutionary film in the way that it ended up looking on the screen. They did a lot of revolutionary stuff at the production level too. Also, Peter Fernandez and Corin Orr, the original English dub voice actors for Speed Racer and Racer X and Trixie and Spritle from the 67 series, they did they were the voice of the race announcers in the film. So, a little Easter eggs for people that are paying attention. And because we talked about sort of how these things were shot, and I know you joked that like, oh, this isn't a real racetrack, right? But they did build an actual working Mach 5 for the film, along with several other full-size vehicles, including Racer X's Shooting Star. But all the driving scenes were filmed with the actors sitting in a gimbal, and then the race car cockpit around them with a computer programmed hydraulic system. So like, they're not doing any of the actual car stunts, but they did actually build full-size working models of these cars, which I thought was pretty cool for a movie that is about a family of people that build race cars. I'm glad they at least had a working one somewhere in the production.
Emile the Hirsh, actors get like a 40X experience where they're getting to watch the thing as it shakes and rides with them.
Pretty much. First person 40X. So Emile Hirsh watched every episode of Speed Racer, and he even went and talked to race car legend Jimmy Johnson about learning some tips and tricks, although he's not doing any actual racing. I think needing to at least learn how the pedals work if you're not someone who typically drives stick shift is probably important, although a lot of it's close-ups too. I don't know how much of it is Emile Hirsch's boots actually doing the shifting,
stomping
in the car. Yeah, so back at the early stages of production too, when it was first set up with Warner Brothers, it was Richard Donner and Lauren Schuler Donner. They were originally set to produce alongside Joel Silver, so you could have had some interesting Warner Brothers connections there, but it stalled out so long. And I think my favorite bit of trivia, although it's not really all that substantial, but during the 90s, when this was originally in its production window or its pre-production window, Nick Cage was offered the role of Racer X, and so like many things on this show, everything points back to Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, your radar.
I would have loved
right
to see him.
Nicolas Cage radar going off. You're like, what's this? Nicolas Cage in the trivia somewhere?
Yeah.
I must find it.
So I would have loved to see him pop up as Racer X in this movie because he would have been super weird. We already know this. Like, I think Matthew Fox plays it like fairly straight and fairly serious. Like, he's taking it serious. And I think that's actually something that's true of most of the cast, is that they are treating the movie for the most part like it's serious. And the everything happening around them is kind of like unserious and insane. And I think that's what makes it work, is that like Susan Sarandon feels very much like in line with the mom of this person. Like John Goodman feels like the older dad character. I mean, the kid, of course, and the monkey sort of like spins it out into like the ridiculous nature, but like Speed, Trixie's a little bit like sort of cartoonish as well, but again, very like invested for the right reasons. So I like that. I like that they all took it as if we're not making this like silly, stupid thing. We're making this actual movie, and then they're acting with green screens and gimbals and stuff. So who knows what it was actually like on set? But it'd probably be fun to see some of the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, it would have been a lot of having to really imagine what trusting your directors and imagining what the final product is, because you're just in such a different version of it when the cameras are rolling.
Yeah, like you get the sort of like fight scene in the valley before the cars come out the other side when they're doing the whole switch with the gangsters and all that. Like, that's all green screen for the most part, and you got like kung fu mixed in, and you really have to trust. I mean, fortunately, the Wachowskis like were very good action directors before this happened, and like you have one of the most revolutionary sort of martial arts films ever under your belt, and so you can kind of you get piecemeal out as much of that as you want. Yeah, because it's like granted, like Matthew Fox fighting is not like the strength of the movie. I feel like at least the scene makes sense, and it doesn't really like take me out of it that much. Like, you see Speed is like, he gets kicked in the face and spun around, like does like a Tony Hawk 900 after getting clobbered, so there is the acknowledgement that like he's willing to fight, but he's not a skilled fighter. And so like there are at least levels to like the individual characters of who can fight, who can't. It's not just a world where everybody knows karate kind of thing. Right. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and Speed's not a invincible Superman. He's like, I'm good at driving.
That's my thing.
Yeah.
Driving and looking good in his white suit and scarf. He's got the fashion on his side. Okay. Let's head to the bonus wheel, and we'll see what we can get off of it. If it's the one about pitching a sequel, then we've already done that, so I'm going to skip it. Okay, so this is a fun one though. So this you have to sell the movie to a new watcher, new audience, whatever. What is the one scene in the movie that makes the movie?
To me, the one scene that makes the movie is the final race. The way all the threads come together as we see him, once he's spun out and he's like, oh, we need to restart the car, and then I need to go from back to front very quick, like do the whole thing very quickly. Like, that all works for me while it's layering in voiceover and stuff, and then turns into a kaleidoscope of color and motion. Yeah, that's the one. That's the reason I watch this movie, is so that it can culminate in that at the end.
It's not a bad pick. I think for people that are like light sensitive and get motion sickness easily, that one's not going to be theirs. And definitely don't watch it in
this movie is not theirs.
VR
also.
Goggles. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, don't even watch it at the beginning. Just walk away. But I think I like the first race a lot because of sort of the emotional context of like him racing the ghost of his brother and not breaking his record, even though it's like, as a guy who's a competitor and who probably wants to break the track record and be the best driver in the world, he eases off and like lets his brother's record stand. I think that's a very cool moment that shows you a lot about who Speed is, because it's like he's crying as he's having that moment, and you're having sort of like these flashbacks of him and his brother, and so it's like you're getting a ton at once, and it's not really done in an expository way like it is done in a lot of the other scenes in the movie. It's done in a way where it's like you're given the scene without it being like explained to you, and I really appreciate that aspect of it. But you sort of learn everything you need to know about who Speed is just in that first race scene, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, they really do it well. I think good call.
Okay, let's go back to the big board and we'll see what else we get off this. Okay. This is an interesting one for this movie, considering the capitalist narrative. What brand would shamelessly sponsor this movie if it came out today?
If it came out today, I feel like some kind of car company is gonna
for sure
pick up on, you know, a speed racer type, and maybe not a main car company, maybe like an upstart is going to try and do some sort of like a Mach 6 I mean, or like a Corvette Mach 6 version from Chevy or something. I don't know, but then again, it's a kids movie and you're marketing towards kids who aren't necessarily going to be buying cars. So maybe it's a toy car situation. I think maybe this Matchbox tries to come back big with the Speed Racer tie-in.
Yeah, the all new Hot Wheels track. I like that. Okay, we could do that. All right, well, we'll move on from actually, you know what? You haven't been here in a while. Let me bring that wheel back. We'll spin it one more time, just for old time's sake. And we'll hope we don't get the dirty question, because this is a family movie. Okay, so
I'm not.
If you could ask one character from this film a question, who would it be, and what is the question?
A character, though?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to ask Trixie why she's not driving cars more, because when she needs to, they're like, hey, could you just, and she was like, yeah. And then she's like, oh, I drive like amazingly. So I'm like, why are you in the stands watching and cheering for Speed Racer instead of also racing, since you clearly love it and are supremely talented at it?
Yeah, when called upon, I can just be one of the top few drivers in the world. But, you know, I really enjoy my helicopter.
Guess. But it's so much more fun to just tell Speed that, oh no, watch out, there are people behind you.
Hey, look, everybody needs a good team behind him, and so she's sort of like the pit captain. So
yeah, well, I mean, it's just for so long you assume it's like, well, I mean, Speed has the driving skills and not the other people, and then she just hops in. And you're like, oh, does everyone have amazing driving skills? We don't know until they are called upon. It's crazy.
Maybe that's the sequel, is that like Susan Sarandon's behind the wheel, also an amazing driver. The son and the monkey, also
Speed family. Everyone's
Speed
driving.
Family racing.
And then the cars form together a giant robot where each car is arms and legs.
Yeah,
okay, wait, I'll rewrite my sketch and rewrite my sequel.
Yeah, Speed Racer meets Voltron. It is a union of old school TV animation.
Mach 6.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to go to more or less. I just want to hear the one thing that you want more of from the film and the one thing that you want less of. I think I've already got a clue.
Well, more, I'm going to use my more spot to shout out someone I haven't gotten a shout out yet, because I really like that there's a person in this movie. The actor is named Kick Gurry. His name is Kick Gurry, and you go, what would that person look like? And then you see him and you're like, oh, that's exactly what a person named Kick Gurry would be. And he's fantastic. He's Sparky the mechanic, and he's funny and silly and goofy, and it works for me. So I want more of that. Oh, and more of Tim Curry saying fast monologues, even if I don't care what he's talking about. I like him talking. It reminds me of other Tim Curry movies where he gets to talk fast, and that's good. Less of Spritle and Chim Chim, please.
That's fair. What's funny though, so Kik and Emile Hirsh are still friends to this day. So
Really? Nice.
yeah, because one of the interviews they were just asking Emile Hirsh, like, you know, how are you still with the rest of the cast? And he was like, yeah, it's all kind of like, you know, a big sort of like family event kind of thing. And he said that he's very close with Kik, and he still like
That's
talks
awesome.
to Susan Sarandon, and so it was nice to hear that, because it does seem like it was a fun set to work on. So I think at least with that, you know, it's nice to see that a movie was both fun to make and fun to watch, and
Translates.
the people involved still actually really enjoyed it. So be it. Okay. Where was I headed? So I was going to do a special thing with shout outs, but you did that already. So I'm glad that you did, because 2 birds, 1 stone.
Nice.
I did want to circle back quickly, though, to just talk about 2008 and some of what was going on at the time and why this movie kind of didn't necessarily succeed. It still ends up, though, at wait, is this domestic? Total gross. Hold on. Oops. Bear with me. So this ends up at 20 something overall in total gross, but of course is competing with movies that year. You have The Dark Knight, Iron Man, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I Am Legend comes out, Hancock as well, Wall-E, National Treasure, Kung Fu Panda, Twilight, Quantum of Solace, the Sex and the City movie. So not that it's the same audience, but you have a lot of very big successful movies this year, and it's a really tough market to compete in at the time. Whereas like had this been Matrix 4 in 2008, maybe it's like slightly more successful, but also significantly more forgettable. So it stands as like this kind of beacon of artistic creativity in an industry that, despite all of the evidence suggesting that originality and creativity, like backing the artist, is actually a good play, we see a lot of that trying to be squeezed out. So even though the movie wasn't successful then, I'm glad that we got a chance to talk about it now. And is there anything else that you really wanted to touch on that like we didn't talk about, that you had written down in your notes, or something that like really stood out to you that you wanted to mention?
I mean, let me think. I think this movie is a lot like, there's some other movies, but it's a lot like a magic trick, where if you just kind of ride with it at the speed it's going, if you let Speed Racer drive you and you ride with it, you'll have a good time. If you try to nitpick and poke at it, it does start to fall apart, but it starts to fall apart because it's built like a movie set, you know, where if you go like, how come I can't look behind this? Oh, well, it's just plywood back there. And you're like, yeah, but you're not supposed to see it from back there. It's designed to be experienced on the run through, and then sort of, you know, just like visceral, the emotional feelings of it. And that's how I like this movie and how I think it works best. So I think that's sort of
No, I like that. It's like view from head on only. Like, you know, a lot of people are the kinds of people that like you try to figure out a magic trick rather than simply enjoying it. And I've been guilty of that myself, of like, oh, that was fascinating. I'm curious how that is done, and like my brain is naturally trying to puzzle solve it. But as I got older and I sort of regularly went to sleight of hand magic shows and I talked to some of the magicians and sort of became friends with some of them, I was like, yeah, I'm not really interested in finding out. I'm glad that you can do this and wow me, and I sort of appreciate mystery. There's not a ton of mystery in the world all the time, so being able to accept it and like extend it for other people, I think is pretty cool. So I think an apropos comparison.
I mean, and I like that I like figuring out magic tricks too, but it's a thing where if someone figures it out and then they're like, well, if I was behind you, I could totally see what you're doing. You're like, yeah, but you're not behind me. That's not a valid criticism. It works from how I made it.
And then there's also the other people that are like, let me create a whole TV show where I expose how magic tricks are done so that I can ruin the mystery for all the people who do actually enjoy it. Okay, let's head on over to Critics Corner. We will hear all of the horrid things that the critics had to say. This has a Metascore of 37 out of 100. It's brutal. We start at the bottom. We've got 2 20s on the board. One is New York Magazine, which is Vulture, and The New Yorker. And because we got a tie, you can choose which one you want to hear.
Vulture.
All right. This is David Edelstein. He says, if I'm reading this correctly, he says, orgy hell. The film is like a nightmare in which you're trapped in an arcade with screens on all sides and no eyelids. Based on an elemental but happily streamlined Japanese cartoon, an anime precursor, it's an eyesore, a shambles with incoherent action and ear-buckling dialogue.
See, David's one of the people who should have probably taken out after about 5 minutes, been like, this isn't for me. Because it's more of that, all of it.
Yeah, if you're not in on the first race, then it's going to be a long 2 hours.
It's going to be a miserable time.
Minutes.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, David. I mean, you do some good work. This was not your shining example, and you will be proven wrong in time as more and more people come to this. So we got another tie on the board as we go up. We've got The Village Voice and The Austin Chronicle in with 30s. Who do you want to hear from?
Village Voice. Let's go East Coast.
J. Hoberman says, gaudier than a Hindu temple roof, louder than Las Vegas night, Speed Racer is a cathedral of glitz.
That's a compliment. This is complimentary, right? These are all complimentary words? You're describing a good time.
It sounds like it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who doesn't like Vegas at night? Okay. We've got 2 50s on the board as well. Lots of ties here. So you can choose between Real Views and Entertainment Weekly.
Entertainment Weekly, ew.
Lisa Schwarzbaum says, young boys are the only suitable audience for Speed Racer. The elaborate live-action adaptation written and directed by Matrix creators, the Wachowskis, and even they might feel an urge to squirm. I don't think so.
Young boys taking shrapnel for no reason. I think that works for anyone who has eyeballs. That's who I think it works for.
Yeah. I saw this movie for the first time at 41 years old, and I loved it.
Young boy yourself.
Yeah. I mean, look, that young boy inside of me is like, I want to see more Speed Racer-like movies, and we should have gotten more of these. You should have watched this in 2018 or 2008.
Strangely enough, the young boy is the part of this movie I could eject the easiest.
Yeah. I wouldn't have minded seeing more of Speed as a kid.
That was actually
his upbringing. Yeah, he was good.
That was fun. Yeah.
But the Spritle was like, he was definitely sort of like over the top kids comedy relief. And I get that like that's part of the story, but
the kid is taking his social cues. He's learning from a chimpanzee. I mean, it's going to affect his child development clearly.
Yeah. It is
not normal.
It is not responsible parenting. As we learned from Primate earlier this year, you don't leave your kid with a chimpanzee.
Nope. Also from the movie Nope. Tells you.
Exactly. Look,
don't do
the
this.
movies since Speed Racer have learned good and well.
They're trying to tell us.
Chimps will rip your face off.
Stop integrating chimpanzees into your families, everybody. The super common American problem.
Yes. I think in defense of Speed Racer, they used bonobos, supposedly. I don't think that's accurate, though. It's like, those look like chimps. I've seen bonobos, but this is what I saw in the notes. Probably completely inaccurate. But oh well. So we've also got another tie at the higher rung on the ladder. We've got The Hollywood Reporter and Empire.
How high up the ladder is this?
This is 3 rungs down, so they're tied at 60.
Okay, let's go Hollywood Reporter.
Kirk Honeycutt says, unlike a Pixar cartoon that embraces as a wide an audience as possible, Speed Racer proudly denies entry into its ultra-bright world to all but gamers, fanboys, and anime enthusiasts. Story and characters are tossed aside to focus obsessively on PG-rated action and milk-guzzling heroes? Doesn't he drink milk once? Or maybe
whenever he
twice
wins his
at the
race,
dinner
he's
table?
like that's his race drink that they all pass around at the end
Yeah.
instead of champagne.
This guy's anti-milk propaganda, apparently. I wouldn't describe anybody in the movie as milk guzzling, though, right? He's not like he's just popping milk out all the time. He has milk 2 or 3 times in a 2-hour and 15-minute movie. This is not even the milkiest movie that I've ever covered on this show. This isn't even the milkiest movie that Emile Hirsh has been in. He was in the movie Milk. I mean, this is this is a low-ranking movie in terms of milk. Okay, we'll go up the board. We've got Todd McCarthy from Variety. He gave it a 70. Says, aims squarely at family audiences. The Wachowskis' return behind the camera for the first time since the Matrix trilogy is a blur of video, action, painting, and very loud sounds, notable solely for its technical wizardry. In every other respect, it's pure cotton candy, entirely non-nutritious, but too sweet and pretty for young people to resist.
I can't argue. I mean, the scene where the car
most glowing. It's a little backhanded, but yeah.
Yeah. The car is driving. I'm remembering car driving at the semi, and they're like shooting each other, and it looks like nothing you ever see. You're just like, okay, yeah, I will just have to accept this because I can't really push back on it at this point.
Yeah,
it's just
it looks awesome. I would watch an entire movie in that art style. To be honest, it looks great. Okay, so we close it out. We've got Premiere on the top of the board with a 75. This is Glenn Kenny. Says, this is not a film occurring in an alternate or imaginary reality. Rather, it is a film of no reality. That is, a picture that changes the rules of its universe strictly according to its creator's whims. Yes, like a work of art by the artist kind of should. I think that's more complimentary than a 3 out of 4. But I think looking back, that is a bigger compliment than Glenn Kenny intended it to be.
But while all the other critics are probably going like 75, you are going crazy over there.
You don't get invited to the critics' dinner where we get to be shitty together.
Go watch your Speed Racer by yourself, my friend. I'm
right? We're not watching.
I would happily.
Glenn Kenny, give me a call. Email me at nick@theshice.com. We'll chat. Okay, so. We've gone through the gauntlet of Critics Corner. Wasn't as bad as I expected. But now we have the challenge of coming up with a gateway drug movie for Speed Racer. What movie would you even ballpark this movie with to get somebody to confidently push play on Speed Racer?
It's tough because like this. There's not a lot to compare this to. It's sort of its own thing, but I was trying to think, and I'm like, if you like racing movies, that's a good point. If F1 floated your boat this time, maybe you'd like this type of racing movie. It's a very different movie, but it has a similar sort of like, hey, we have to win our race in our clever ways and figure out ways to get around these other people. I think Crank would be an interesting kind of where it's like got that frenetic energy all the time, and you're just constantly like going like, okay, I'm trying to keep up with this movie, but I don't know if I'm succeeding. And then the other one that's weird is where it's very, I'm going to pick another movie about a different speed racer from 2023. It's The Flash. And I think The Flash is one where you have to get on board with what that movie's doing if you want to like it. And if you don't like it in the first few minutes, you should eject because it's a very like, it's doing its own thing and it's weird and there are ways to like it. And I think not everybody does. So I feel like, but ultimately I would say give Speed Racer a chance the first 10 minutes. And if you like that, you'll like the movie. And if you don't have to worry about the rest of it.
Yeah. I remember you and I had talked about The Flash when it came out, and it was kind of before I was doing contemporary movies on the show. And so I just didn't have anywhere to put it, but I have thought about it multiple times since then, because it was a movie that people really like hated. And I'm like, I get that you don't like this, or maybe it's not up to the standard of what you would have hoped for, but I felt like the hate for it was a little bit unnatural, but that's a conversation for another time.
Clearly. How about you? What would you?
I recently watched Cars for the first time, which I really enjoyed. It is, I mean, it's completely animated, so it puts you in that world. It also sort of has a little bit of the digital gloss, which helps. But I think the movie, I think that's more actually toned down and measured than Speed Racer, even though it's animated. Like the moments where it's quiet, it is very quiet. It is very much focused on the story and the characters. So I think the movie I ultimately want to go with was my first choice, was Ang Lee's Hulk, because I think it's 2003. So it's prior to all of the MCU stuff really exploding. And it is probably the most accurate comic book page to movie Marvel adaptation that they've done. Like the way that like the pages turn in it's a lot like Speed Racer in moments where you do have like this like forced foreground and like background perspective at the same time. You actually see like real comic pages in it. It is a little bit off-putting, and it does get dragged down into kind of like almost like kaiju territory with just like, oh, it's the Hulk and then there's like Hulk dogs. But it is incredibly colorful. It was kind of ahead of its time and ahead of the curve in terms of what Marvel wanted to do as well. I think it's still the best representation of the Hulk himself on film. I know that people have like sort of grown accustomed to the other ones that we've seen, but I feel like he was the greenest and the most comic book accurate one of the ones I've seen so far. So yeah, I will promote Ang Lee's Hulk as much as I can. I'm gonna get it on the show at some point, I promise, but we'll probably have to wait until I focus solely on Ang Lee movies, or I get another superhero month slated, and that's not on the calendar for this year. Well, that's not true. There is a superhero sequels month coming after this, but that was not a sequel, so I cannot at this point get the show or get the movie on the show, but I will, I promise.
Nice.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of really good ground. I want to give you a chance to, plug what you're working on, because you've got a couple of podcast projects up your sleeve as well.
Well, thank you. I make a podcast with my co-host Adam, and we make a show called Solutions from the Multiverse, where Adam, he's a college professor. He comes up with new and interesting ideas on how to change the world for the better, and I just kind of try and understand them and throw in some jokes. But I also make much less frequently a show called The Perfect Show, which is a podcast I've been making for a few years, and I just pick a perfect thing from my past and try to investigate it and have fun and be introspective on it. So I'd like for people to check that one out. That's what I put my heart into a lot.
And you were a semifinalist in, was it the Sonic Dash competition last summer, right? Or was it in the last fall?
No, it was last summer. Yeah.
I know it's coming up again. I've been on the fence of like, did I meet the deadline? I know I got to look at the email, but I forgot.
It's happening this weekend, and I haven't signed up yet either. I'm also in the will I won't I got to look at my schedule.
It is a fun challenge and a very interesting project. I'm also super swamped in terms of producing this show and other life obligations. So I'm on the fence.
Yeah, for people who don't know, it's a thing where you sign up ahead of time. It's a 48-hour competition where they give you a prompt, just like a few words or a sentence or something, and then you have 48 hours to make a 2-minute piece of audio. However that prompt speaks to you, whatever format you want, you submit it to them, and then they pick finalists and give prizes out. So
yeah, Scott and I went in very different directions last time we both did this. Scott was very introspective and very like humanistic, and I was like dick and ball jokes. Both on the same prompt.
Good dick and ball jokes. Good dick and ball jokes.
Yes. Thank you. But yeah, free promo for Sonic Dash for anyone that's listening. It's a cool project. Well, thanks for coming on and talking about Speed Racer. I'm glad that I happened to be on Twitter that day at the time that I was to see your glowing endorsement of it. And that made me actually get my ass out of the house and go see it in theaters. And I've been converted fully.
I'm glad you got to see it for the first time in a theater, especially in 2026. Like, that's got to be rare. And that's because the people probably going are like people who like, I already love this and I want to see it in the theater. But to see it for the first time, that's really exciting. And I'm so happy for you. So thanks for taking my suggestion. And I'm glad it worked out because it doesn't always.
It doesn't. And I was like, well, I know it's short notice, but let's see if Scott wants to talk about Speed Racer on the podcast. And look at us.
I always want to talk about Speed Racer. One of the ultimate evergreen truths about me.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for hanging out, and you have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Many thanks to Scott, not just for coming on the show and talking to me about Speed Racer, but for being the primary reason that I went to the theaters to see the 4K restoration re-release in the first place. I hope you had at least a fraction of as much fun as we did, and make sure to check out The Perfect Show. It's one of my favorite podcasts, and Solutions from the Multiverse, two of Scott's shows that you can find links for in the show notes. And while you are gallivanting about in the show notes, make sure to check out the rest of the Scheist Podcast Network. There are a lot of other good shows in there, like the original Scheist podcast, Hers, His, and Ours, X-Friends, and Kunked. Plus, you'll also find the links to support the show by becoming a Resistance Frontlines member for just $5 a month. Get access to the Discord, free entry into giveaways. You'll get all of the exclusive episodes. And I also include a free welcome gift for all first-time contributors. Plus, you'll have peace of mind knowing that your money goes to supporting an independent podcast like this one and helping buy music for the show like the stuff you're listening to in the background right now. You can join our lovely contributors and get a shout-out just like Kristen, Sharon, Ben, Sean, Josie, Donnie, Nathan, and Melissa. Thank you all for the continued support. And of course, thank you to everyone who took the time to listen to not just this episode, but the entire show. You've got a lot of choices, so thanks for trusting me with your time. If you are still listening to this, I would encourage you to click on the link in the show notes for the listener survey and share your thoughts with me. I know it might seem like a small thing and people don't like taking surveys, but you can actually impact the trajectory of the show and help me make it better for both you and for me. So until next time, be good, do good, have fun, watch movies.